All right, I think we can start and then we'll have more people joining in. All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining in. And I'll be beginning the session by just introducing our organizers and our speaker for today. So, our organizers are CSIP and OLS. So, the Center for Social Impact and Philanthropy is India's first academic center, which is focused on enabling strategic and robust philanthropy in the social impact space. And through research, discussion, and even capacity building, the center envisions philanthropy and social impact in India. OSL, which is the Office of Learning Support at Ashoka University, creates and implements practices for the inclusion of students with physical and learning disabilities in higher education. Over the last few years, the office has supported students with visual impairment, hearing impairment, autism, along with various specific learning disabilities such as dyslexia, dysgraphia, and dyscalculia. This office simultaneously acts as a central resource center for specific need related information and services for the university. Um, at this point, I would also like to introduce our speaker for today, Vineet Saraiwala, who is a postgraduate from the Indian Institute of Management, Bangalore. And through his organization, Atypical Advantage, he has transformed how people with disabilities shop across India through pioneering concepts like Sabke Liye and Quiet Hour. He is also an avid trekker, marathoner, and endurance cyclist and lifelong volunteer. And he has joined us today to share his experiences working in this field of social impact and inclusivity. Um, and before I hand it over to you, Vineet, I would just want to go through the flow of the session, which is going to be you sharing your experiences, followed by a case study discussion, and then a Q&A. And over to you, Vineet.
I think thank you for the introduction as such. So in fact, thank you to the organizers for inviting me as such. Sharon, you have the screen access?
Yes, Vineet, I do.
Yeah. So probably I'll just like to share a journey, my journey in less than 3-4 minutes. But since we are like few participants, open to more questions, because I think the idea is to have mutual learning. I already have some of the questions which all of you had submitted in the form as such. So that's pretty nice. Just wanted to tell you the organization, the previous organization where I worked was Big Bazaar, and that was there in the introduction to make shopping accessible for people with disabilities in the country and not atypical advantage. So that's just a small error uh, as such. But yeah, just before even starting, I would like to probably play a small video which is on me, and that just to set up the context. Shannon, could you play the Flipkart one?
Sure.
Yeah. The biggest
Is the video audible?
Yeah. irony here is I think you'll hardly find a story जहाँ पे एक person with visual disability is making a mark for artisans with disability across the country. जब मैं कक्षा 11वीं में था तब मुझे पता चला कि मुझे रेटिनाइटिस पिगमेंटोसा है और ये एक डीजेनरेटिव कंडीशन है. Me and my brother both are persons with visual disability. इंडिया में 3/4 persons with disabilities को कोई सपोर्ट नहीं मिलता है. The labor force participation of people with disabilities is half the national labor force participation. The literacy rate of people with disability is extremely low. मेरे में हमेशा से एक अंदर से चीज थी कि मैं इस सोसाइटल प्रॉब्लम को डिग्निटी के साथ कैसे सॉल्व करूं. आई हैड दिस आइडिया इन माय माइंड कि ऐसा कुछ होना चाहिए, एक प्लेटफॉर्म जहां पे हम पीपल विद डिसेबिलिटीज की एबिलिटीज पे फोकस करें, ना कि उनकी डिसेबिलिटीज पे। एंड हमने मार्च से इस आइडिया पे काम शुरू किया। ये पूरा आइडिया कोरोना के टाइम पे ही बना है और कोरोना के टाइम पे ही एग्जीक्यूट हुआ है। Atypical Advantage is India's largest inclusive platform to generate economic livelihood for people with disabilities. We have 100 artists with disabilities from 18 different states of the country, having 13 different types of disability. One of the biggest challenges which anyone after starting the company face.
You can skip this 15 seconds.
One of my friends program livelihood to the underprivileged section of our society. I see Flipkart Samarth changing the entire game in terms of the entire vision of this country, because when Flipkart Samarth showcases a product or an artwork made by an artist with disability, actually generating immense awareness in the country about the strengths of persons with disabilities. The second thing, for an artist with disability, when they see their artwork on India's largest e-commerce platform, Flipkart, it leads to a lot of self-confidence within them. Atypical Advantage and Flipkart together can reach a wider set of people with disabilities in this country and give every artist with disability the opportunity which they truly deserve.
हिंदुस्तान में न जाने कितने लोग हैं जो इस तरह से परेशान हैं। अगर उनको ये जीवन यापन का व्यवस्था दे रहा है तो भगवान उनके भी परिवार को और आगे बढ़ाए, ये भी उनका मार्गदर्शन हमेशा करता रहे।
मैं गर्व से बोल सकती हूँ, विनीत मेरा बेटा है। जो आम बच्चे नहीं कर पाते हो वो मेरा बच्चा कर चुका। देखने वाले बच्चे भी इतना शायद नहीं कर पाए, मेरा बच्चा इतना कुछ कर रहा है। मुझे इस बात का बहुत गर्व है। मेरा बच्चा सुपर है, ऐसा सोचती हूँ।
If you look at my life, whether it's making it to IIM Bangalore, cycling 5,000 kilometers, or even doing 7 half marathons, a lot of that was in the spirit of competitiveness. In the past 1.5 to 2 years, I've realized that I don't need to prove anything to anybody, not even prove to myself. The real merit of every individual is not to prove to the world, but do his best and see how he can serve the society in his personal capacity.
So I'll just probably brief you on my journey here. As such, the core question which we currently are holding is we can probably solve a lot of social problems with the use of technology, be it any problem. And that is what I have realized in my past 2 years of starting this social venture called Atypical Advantage. Just wanted to throw up a question. Let's say you want to hire a singer with disability. Where would you go? Everyone tells to give opportunities, but there is no place in the country to hire a singer with disability. Let's say you want to hire a sign language interpreter to make your sessions accessible. Where would you find a sign language interpreter? This is one of the key questions when I was with my former employer, and I was just thinking about this to myself, that where can I find people with disabilities and give them opportunities? It started with hiring models and voiceover artists, and I was not able to find a single model and a voiceover artist with disability. And I just thought that a corporate probably would not like to take so much time in figuring out people with disabilities, their portfolio. And that was the core question which came to me. And I thought that there has to be something in our country, right, where people can find singers, artists, comedian, magicians, freelancers, full-time opportunities for people with disabilities. And that question was something which I was holding. And like all of you, I think everyone has ideas, but probably no one does anything about those ideas, including me. So this idea about Atypical Advantage, I think Sharon would share you the website link. Sharon is leading the operations for Atypical Advantage. As such, probably you can go through the website and get a good understanding about it. And that was the question which I was holding, not doing anything like all of us, and just thinking. And again, since I was a person with visual disability, and probably quitting your full-time job and stopping your monthly salaries after graduating from IIM Bangalore was, I think, too tempting, honestly, as such. And I also was not very confident about this, because no one knew this idea would work or not. There is nothing globally like this, as such, where people can go ahead and look at abilities of people with disabilities and book them for their talent and not their disability. So that was the thought behind the platform. And in fact, one of my mentors, I showed him this idea about having a platform which can generate immense opportunities for people with disabilities, and told him that, this is an idea, and I think this is something which needs to be there in the country, and it is not there in the country. And these are his lines, and I still remember that, which says that it's not about me or you, but India will lose an opportunity to help people with disabilities at scale. And yeah, probably that was the trigger. I quit my corporate career, and uh, uh, went into this as a full-time problem to be solved. Just to give you some statistics, more than three-fourths of people with disabilities are unemployed. The labor force participation is half of them, and over 130 million people with disabilities are there. I'm very sure it's not visible to all of us, but it's there. And that was the problem which I was trying to solve. I have this condition, retinitis pigmentosa, so I use a screen reader to do my daily work, which is I hear things on the computer, on the phone, and it's a text to speech software. I'm very sure some of you would be aware about this, and that is how I do my daily uh, chores, as such. And obviously I had Ashoka is fairly inclusive. Similarly, I had campus, I am Bangalore, which was also very inclusive with soft copies and so on, and that is why I was able to study. Like, for example, just to tell you, when me and my brother both cracked common aptitude test, I was like one of the highest ever quants percentile. So people would think that how do I do mathematics without a pen and paper? And yeah, that was something which I always cherish. Fast forward, typical corporate career, a lot of interviewers obviously rejected me because of disability, and they probably thought that I'll not be able to do certain tasks as such. So I worked with Future Group. There I did a very interesting project to make shopping accessible to people with disabilities in the country. I'm very sure everyone wants to have the power of shopping. I realized that so many shoppers with disabilities were not entering public spaces, and that was one of the projects which I did. And over 150,000 shoppers with disability shopped in our stores for the first time in their lives, with shopping assistance, accessible trial room, accessible washroom. I also launched a program called Quiet Hour, where 15,000 people with autism shopped with reduced sound, lights, trolley movement. Did some bit of hiring of people with disabilities there. And I think that just gave me the context to build this platform, which I have done. And probably, I think, as Steve Jobs has said, that we can always connect the dot backwards. This was the same point which my mentor told me, that that is why you are the best person to solve this problem in this country, because you personally are a person with disability, have gone to a good B school education, and third, your past work of again transforming lives of people with disabilities from a shopping point of view across the country. So these were some of these ingredients which helped me to make a decision as such. But I would be open to more questions here, probably post the thing. So we currently are there into four verticals. So many singers with disabilities who have lost, uh, they have not got even a single show during COVID, now suddenly are getting shows and are earning with dignity. I would probably like to place some of these
things. The first one is performing artist, which has dancer, singer, musician, magicians, models. You'll be amazed to see the talent pool of people with disabilities. Let me play this for you, which is our performing artist one. I hope you love the work as well as the talent.
All right. Thank you so much for sharing
Sharon,
all of that.
yeah. No, Sharon is just,
Okay.
we'll quickly play some of the work because that will give a good context when you ask us questions.
मुझको दे तू मिट जाने, अब खुद से दिल मिल जाने, यूं है ये इतना फासला। मेरे लाइफ की ट्रेजेडी देखिए, मैं एक बार एक अंधे के रोल के लिए ऑडिशन देने गया, तो मुझे रिजेक्ट कर दिया। वो कहते हैं कि तुम अंधे लगते नहीं हो। मैंने कहा सर मैं अंधा हूँ। बोले वो तो ठीक है, लेकिन वो फील नहीं आ रही है।
To make that difference and to make our lives worth living.
Collaborating with Atypical Advantage on the occasion of World Disability Day was a brilliant experience.
We had the pleasure of working with the professionals at Atypical Advantage late last year. Moreover, they were willing to accommodate the very specific technical needs the job required.
50 plus brands have worked with us during COVID, and singers, dancer, musicians, comedians have got opportunities with dignity, and most of them did not know how to do virtual shows and so on. But I think this is a good enabler. It's very ironic that when people with disabilities asked for work for home options before COVID, no one gave them, saying that that is not possible. But now we have seen how post-COVID work from home is the new reality. So that's our work on performing artists. I would like to probably showcase how visual artists with disabilities have got opportunities, and more than 18 lakh worth of artworks have been sold, and they got again employment with dignity. I'm very sure when people respect other people for their work, I think that's a different level of joy. Let me just play the atypical art vertical. We have 105 artists with disabilities from 17 different states, having 20 different disabilities. And again, let me tell you, all of this, whatever I'm talking, has been purely word of mouth. We have not spent anything significant on marketing. We genuinely believe our work should speak for itself. And another interesting point about Atypical Advantage is we don't apply for any awards, because I personally believe that our work is the biggest award. And if we are getting joy in generating livelihood for other people, why do we need an award for that? Shannon, could you quickly play the art one?
Recently, I decided to buy a couple of art pieces from Atypical Advantage, and I was just blown away by the beautiful art that's available on this site.
amazing feeling when I heard that 7 artworks of Swami were sold at once.
Atypical Advantage. Thank you.
It's such a great pleasure and a moment of pride for us.
Yeah, so this is on our artwork. I'll probably just play one last video in the interest of time. I think this was one of the questions also, that where can people with disabilities find jobs as such. We are still not there, but this is one of the answers. And here our core motive is to create more than 1,000 opportunities for people with disabilities on a monthly basis. So that is the number which we want to target on an impact point of view. And I hope that generates more awareness and more economic livelihood for people with disabilities. Shannon, could you play the inclusive hiring one?
Now I am working in Walker Global Dubai.
I am elected at Eureka Group.
I recently joined Zenzer Technology.
I would like to thank Atypical Advantage for bringing me in touch with Cybase software.
The interview went well and I got selected.
I got selected as a customer service associate. Currently, I'm working as consultant communications.
So yeah, so I just wanted to conclude by telling you few things. First, please don't consider anything to do with inspiration or motivation personally, because I think everyone has their own struggles, adversities, and go ahead and start solving for these social problems using technology at scale. Don't worry or don't be afraid. Challenges are there with everybody as such, and I genuinely believe that any marginalized section, the real awareness will come when we'll stop people, any marginalized section, to either think them as more humans, which is telling them on a pedestal like specially able, divyang, having special abilities and so on, which people with disabilities or and even women are thought uh, to be goddesses and so on, or less humans, saying that they cannot do anything in life and they lack the skills and so on. I think let's value people and as fellow human beings, and always remember that lack of that exposure creates the greatest divide in our society. So someone who might not be speaking good English like us, probably that has to be done, might be that he's from a rural setting, and for example a person with disability, for coming to that level, probably the education system had never been equal from us. For example, you all might have got good education, but for let's say a blind person, the books were not accessible to him soft copy. Or a person with hearing disability, let's say there would not have been sign language interpretation, or a person with locomotive disability who would not have even gone to school because the school had stairs. So everyone does not start life with the same starting point, and hence the rationale of diversity and inclusion. Probably because I think we are all blessed and we should be in gratitude for those extras which we have got in life. And this story which always stays with me is I was running the Ladakh marathon. I had gone to practice again on Pangong So, which is like 13,000 feet above sea level. And probably in those high places, you'll always remember that one of the things to be grateful is for your breath, right? Like, because your breath is, you struggle for breath and you're running, there, and you realize that your breath is so hard and it's very difficult. And I just thought to myself that if I count my extras, the biggest gratitude is that I'm breathing every day, every moment, and I'm very sure all of you are doing the same right now. And if you think of all the other extras in your life, which is probably two hands, two legs, as well as your friends, family, a good schooling, there are so many extras to be grateful towards. So let's count our extras and count our gratitude. And I think that is something which always stays with me. And I just focus on my breath and count those extras which I've received in life. So yeah, that's from my side. Open to more questions. As such, I hope the people who are here loved this small conversation.
Thank you so much, Vineet. That was quite inspiring and just amazing. I personally really enjoyed the performers and, just hearing their stories. Um, at this point, we thought that we would have just one or two case studies in the interest of time and then move on to a host of questions that I'm sure the audience has. Um, so, for the case study, it's essentially a brainstorming session situated around a societal problem that people with disabilities might face. And we want everyone to participate. So if you have any thoughts to share, please feel free to raise your hand, unmute and speak, or even write in the chat box. And yeah, I will hand it over to Khyati from the OLS student team.
Okay. Hello. So we are going to be discussing a little bit about neurodiversity. Now, neurodiversity essentially refers to the different ways in which a mind functions, right? So, autism spectrum disorder, dyslexia, attention deficit hyperactive disorder, or ADHD, Tourette syndrome, specific learning disabilities. Then there also exist locomotor disabilities, visual and physical impairments. So all of these, they fall under the ambit of neurodiversity. And as we know, society does reward a very typical manner of functioning with our set routines or working hours, deadlines, grading rubrics. As a result, it does become difficult for an atypical person to pursue higher education, as you will find more people with, say, autism spectrum disorder or ADHD dropping out of school. So our question for today is, how can we create a more inclusive process for an atypical student, or just generally a more inclusive process from admission to graduation for a student? To get you started, let's think about the processes that we do have for admissions right now. For, say, STEM fields, we have countrywide exams. So you get the college depending on your all India rank. You might have to give an interview afterwards. You might have to write statements of purpose or get letter of recommendations. So you have to have, say, for some fields, very good communication skills or writing abilities. And yeah, so you require all these skills sometimes to get the admission in a college anyway. So do you think, so okay, let's start here. Let's think about some existing assistive methods that are used to make this process of admission accessible, and also think about whether it is possible to make the admission process more holistic and whether a streamlined process would be helpful. Do you guys have any thoughts? Yeah, just feel free to unmute yourself and speak up.
May I?
Himanshi,
yeah. I think it should be started with itself making a website accessible. For example, if I'm looking for admission in a foreign, on the first page there is a statement on accessibility statement, something like is there. But I was a student of Delhi University, and I'm working in an executive search right now. And I also lead a Decode Disability, a social media initiative. Based on that, I have not found or I have not seen any accessibility notice on any of in my entire education. Even school forms, we do not have in schools, in university forms, there is a column of disability and type the nature of disability. But where is a column of the accommodation you need? That is a right, I guess. That is mentioned. There's a one word called reasonable accommodation as per as RPWD Act. But I have never seen where they are asking for that which accommodation or what kind of accommodation you will be in need.
No, yeah, I think you're completely right, because as I think I'm previously also mentioned, this is where the inequality increases and increases and increases, because
If, for example, uh,
it
shall I
starts
go ahead?
from the schooling.
Yeah. For example, there is a policy called equal opportunity for every company, irrespective of private and governments, but hardly of them they are on the websites. They are not even practicing in our India.
Yeah.
Right.
Completely, yeah. No, you are completely right, and personally here believe that probably the more economic livelihood comes through, probably more people realize, and then more awareness spreads. And again, school colleges, definitely that plays a big role. Even in my life, my college, because it was supportive with all of these tools and the entire process, it helped. Yeah.
Schools, I would not say they are accessible or they
Yeah,
are
yeah, yeah.
aware. Totally, even teachers are not aware. For
Yeah.
example,
No, it's a it's probably a subject of luck also. If the principal and the one or two teachers genuinely believe in so it's not a process, I would say. It's actually luck. You would have
in
seen.
terms of sorry, I'm interrupting you. In terms of process, also schools,
Yeah.
I would not find that
Yeah.
being aware and in process oriented in terms of providing reasonable accommodation or something like that.
That is
But
where
in
it
a
struggles. Yeah.
but in a Delhi university, you have at least you mention your disability.
Yeah.
But without, but that too without what kind of reasonable accommodation student needs. So yeah.
So if I may just jump in here, answering Himanshi's question also. Himanshi, I guess, why, like you asked about, why they don't mention what kind of accommodations are available, right? I think they all assume that, everybody with a certain kind of a disability will require the same accommodation.
Yeah. Or everybody's disability is like homogeneous experience, but not two cerebral palsy even cannot be same.
So apparently they are not even going there, they are not even asking what specific accommodations would you want, right? If they say that, somebody has visual impairment, then they are expecting that they will ask for a reader and a scribe and probably extra time.
Yeah.
Right? So I think they are all putting everyone in the
same basket.
Exactly. So that must be the reason. And you are right. There are some policies which are in place, but they have not been implemented because they are not being shared with the public in general.
Whenever I look for foreign universities, the first page comes with accessibility website. And in India, I tried looking for many websites. I have not found for even a one esteemed Delhi University or IGNU or whatever, JNU. I have not realized that even for a one university in India.
But things are changing now, Himanshi, I must say.
We will work towards that.
Right. Go ahead, Nishka.
Yeah, I mean, are there any more people who'd like to talk about this, or we could move on to next
or
one?
if any more questions also, I think feel free if like anything is coming in your mind.
Sure, Rohan, go ahead.
I was thinking about the point that Himanshi and we all are talking about right now, about how through the already established systems, right, it's difficult to reach out to people. And at the same time, sometimes people with disabilities themselves are not aware about how to
like because even other people are not really sure about how to prompt someone to explore the disability, right? And so if we start thinking from the perspective of how we can prompt a disabled person to like think about their own disability in different ways rather than categorizing them or like asking them to like state the disability itself, uh, that could be one another way to help like disability people to like think about and figure out their own ways to uh, manage across their own problems.
Of course. Yeah. So at this point, I think we can go straight to questions in the interest of time. Um, Vineet, would you like me to read out the questions that we had from the form, or do you want to take?
First, if there are any questions from the audience,
All right. Yeah.
I think you should ask interesting questions. You'll not get a chance again, honestly speaking. Uh, I think that is why probably I kept my journey very short, if or yeah, just to showcase the work as such.
So Vineet, I mean, I definitely have lots of questions, but I'll request others with questions as well as points to discuss with you.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
But I'll just open it for other people to
And
ask.
I have a bunch of questions. I'm thinking which would I ask first?
Can we probably go ahead in terms of the order in which hands have been raised? So I think Unnati, then Bindi, and then I think Himanshi and Arun, because I saw you unmute. Unnati, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, hi everyone. Good evening, sir. Actually, I'm part of a gap year platform. It is a startup idea that we are working on, and we are just in the ideation stage, and we want to make it as inclusive as we can because this is something all of us are. We are six co-founders, and all of us are passionate about this thing. So I was hoping, like, if you could share basically what we are a edtech startup, so how we can in terms of website or even the business model, how we can include things that can make it people that can make it more accessible to people.
Yeah, so just Google web content accessibility guidelines. There are fairly good enough, and that will not only help you to cater to people with disabilities. For example, it would also help you to cater to a very wider audience. Just let me point out a very important factual thing: disability leads to innovation. The typing prediction which you see is actually never designed for non-disabled people. It was designed for people with learning disability. The Siri which you see again on the phones was never designed for non-disabled people. The message which we all speak about is actually was initially designed for deaf people. So I'm very sure all of these facilities, you should be thankful to people with disabilities who probably these specific problem statements when people were working. Similarly, for example, making a website accessible or even making ramps also helps senior citizens, pregnant women with prams. Again, that was initially meant for people with disabilities. So you can, Unnati, you can simply do WCAG guidelines, or even you can look at Atypical Advantage on the accessibility piece. Not people, it is a myth that it requires huge cost and a lot of things extra, actually. And I think you should start from inception on accessibility, and it will let more users come to you.
Thanks a lot, sir.
Mishka, can I go next?
Yes, in order of who's raised hands.
Yeah. So we've met. I work with CSIP at Ashoka University, and just had a very simple question. Like, as an organization, I mean, I know you want to be, inclusive, and but how do you go about it, right? Like, how do you set up your HR practices, or even very basic stuff? Of even if you're putting a JD out there, how do you actually think of attracting talent which is not from mainstream, right? One, obviously, we come to atypical advantage and look for the specific people. But if I was, and I'm thinking disability on one side, but inclusion overall on the other side, and not just for people with disability, um, what would be the way to like go forward, or do we just hit a couple of platforms and then that is pretty much it for us? So what is the right way to go about doing this as
Yeah.
an organization?
Yeah. So I'll perhaps first give you the right way, and then I disagree from that right way, which is very conventional, and most of the people would tell you to do that. I think first, obviously, make the entire process as accessible as you can. And when you it could be even including introvert people, extrovert people, and so on, because sometimes that we have also seen, right, forget disability. So for example, even writing one line on the JD has a huge impact, saying that we welcome every person with disability and any marginalized section. That creates the biggest impact when a person with disability, let's say, is reading the JD, and about regional so there by law there are equal opportunity policies which companies needs to have, which no one follows, unfortunately. But that is a good starting point, as well as making your website accessible. And again, these are basic tweaks, as you have like said about your job description, because if a person with disability cannot access your JD, he'll never apply, right? So that is the first thing. Second thing is, I think first, even before starting all of this, let's say if your workspace is not accessible, and if there are stairs, then one particular disability is completely out of your entire process, as such. So making your workspace accessible, and again, that is mandated by the right for persons with disability, which was passed in 2016. But again, implementation is a big question. If you have all those basics in place, then only go ahead and probably encourage people with disabilities to apply. Otherwise, like nowadays, probably freelancing or work from home is possible, it's okay. But otherwise, let's not try to engage them and then create a problem, because probably they might not be welcoming. Similarly, sometimes what happens, your intranet facilities, let's say attendance portal, employee portal, and so on, those might not be accessible to people with visual disabilities, and they probably suffer a lot. So that these are the 3 4 conventional ways to start the process for inclusion. I'll probably give you my understanding, because once a corporate or any organization sees these things, they either probably think that they will never like to start that journey. And most of them, at least 95% of the corporates, will say that, okay, these are the 10 things, I will not start my journey. I have a different take, that probably, start working with one set of disabilities which matches with your JD. Start with small stints, freelancing, or even a project, a small internship, and then start your journey. Don't get into that competition that, I want to hire X number of people with disability. It's a journey, and the team, the managers, everyone needs to be sensitized. Like one of the core things is probably, centralize purpose and decentralized power, because obviously it works at the top. Like if someone like the CEO or the CXO or the leader says that, okay, drive disability because I'm telling you, it will work for a short term. But in the longer term, the best win is when the managers comes to you and say that, hey, I learned so much, or this was a new way of thinking, when a person with disability comes through you. So I think that adversity and that story helps. So these are some of my learnings. Start with small internship programs, figure out which disability to start with, unless otherwise you'll never start the journey. As simple as that, if you get into the right process. Having said that, that is also equally important, and people should follow that, and as and when, at least start that journey. Otherwise, no one starts that journey.
Thanks.
All right, Arun, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, thank you so much for the initial bit. And yeah, my question was, how do we know who is disabled, especially when you don't have visible, tangible characteristics of disability? And I wanted to know, there are whether subtle forms of disabilities, or is there a particular questionnaire through which I can understand my own disabilities? Because I do have, experiences of such sort. So that, and what do I do after that, when I know? Because again, these subtle forms of disabilities are not often maybe spoken about, I mean, as far as what I know and with my limited knowledge and understanding. So how do I sort of bring myself to this awareness of my own disability? And what kinds of subtle forms of disabilities you think there are, apart from, of course, the way disability itself is a category, and how we understand it generally?
So RPWD Act defines 22, if I'm not wrong, 22 types of disability, visible and invisible disabilities. I think the best way is to ask the person uh, in on how to communicate. Let me tell you, disability is a spectrum. Like for example, my condition is a progressive condition. You could play cricket, ride two-wheelers, even ride four-wheelers at one point, to right now not able to see anything tangible, functional vision. Because it is a spectrum. Similarly, let's say a person with locomotor disability have different levels of mobility. It might be hand or leg. Similarly, a person with hearing disability again would have a different level. So all might require different kinds of assistance. Just to give you an example, someone uses a magnifier on their computer and works, while someone would use a screen reader. So first, having stereotyping based on a certain disability or even a person would not be correct. So again, asking them is the best way possible. As such, there are a lot of screenings as such. So for example, just to give you a very very small example, and it happens in our country, uh, early diagnosis is very important. If for example there are children who don't speak at an appropriate age, and the parents actually don't accept that reality and saying that "Nahi, my son or daughter will speak," in spite, let's say he's not speaking, and let's say he or she grows to 5 years or 6 years down, and then the parent realizes that there is something wrong with my son or daughter, he's not speaking or she's not speaking. But if they would have accepted that thing, or would have gone to a doctor for a therapy or early diagnosis, the child might have the capability to speak, but because he could not listen, he is not having the capability to speak. So I think the best way, early intervention and early diagnosis definitely helps to mitigate a lot of these challenges. So yeah, I don't know if I've completely answered your question.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you.
All right, Vanit, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, hi sir. Thank you for the talk and for the work you've done. So my question was, with the rising awareness about all this uh, about people with disabilities and the facilities that they need, but there's a still like there's no as much as growth that about of the facilities and resources available for them. So where do you think is a gap, because you're more researched with it?
No, so the gap is clearly in the implementation stage, and government needs to step up. Like for example, ramp was a mandatory facility in 1996, our Right to Disability Act, and there was a new legislation which came in 2016. But you can figure out the implementation yourself. So that is where the gap is. A lot of advocacy related organizations are doing their own bit, but that is not enough. And for me, I personally uh, believe that as and when more people get economic opportunities, rest all can follow. Yeah. So I think someone has answered your question.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, we had one more question in the chat. I'll just read that out. Yeah. What if organizations start listing with atypical advantage to actually make the JDs accessible to people with disabilities?
So I still did not get the complete question. We can help you to find people with disabilities. Our JDs are completely accessible, so that is not a challenge. And we have a pool of candidates. So you can obviously get in touch on the website. There's a contact us form. Sharon can probably share that with you. And as such,
All right. I think we had one question left over from the form, unless someone has any questions right now. Okay. So the question was, would you be able to elaborate more on the business model for Atypical Advantage and especially on the challenges that you faced while building it?
I think this is the most interesting question which no one had asked. I thought someone would ask us this question, but yeah. This is my understanding. Okay, okay. In fact, it was Unati's question. It's good. In fact, let me tell you, when I launched the platform, I did not have any clue on the business model. Partly, I knew how we could figure that out. I, in fact, started with a completely volunteer-led team. On 11th of December, we did not have any employees. I think we hired just 1 week before a few employees as such, but largely the team was of volunteers when we launched the platform. So that is how we started, and we started fine tuning this entire process. I don't know if you guys are aware about it. We have already raised 1 crore from a series of angel investors with a social lens who believe in our cause and our mission. And this happened very, I think, 3 months back. So obviously we have a business model. That is why we were able to raise this amount of money. And most of our investors understand where we are, what we are doing and where we are coming from. Now coming to at least our business model. First is performing artist is pretty clear because we design events, so we take a fee out of the entire event, which helps us to build our platform in a sustainable way. So that's the first one. Artwork and store, obviously we charge a commission on every artwork and the products which are sold. Hiring, similarly, we charge the employers. If an organization is an NGO, obviously we don't charge. And let me tell you, we have already collaborated with 80 plus NGOs in our country who are into skilling of people with disabilities. So that is our business model. And the idea is here is to make the platform more sustainable so that we can generate more livelihood in the country. So that is why it's a social venture. And the idea is to grow with sustainability in mind for the platform, just because we want to serve more and more people. And just to tell you few anecdotes, we have also got contributions from people who believed in our cause. And yeah, and that was like pretty unheard of as such. And we never thought that people will contribute to our platform. And yeah, so that is on the business model. I hope that makes things clear as such. But when we started, a lot of these things were not clear to us. When having after a year, more clarity has come. I think the core focus of our platform is still to see how we can generate more opportunities and at the heart serve people with disabilities. So that is the intent. All the other things just happened because we were very true to the core mission.
All right. So are there any final questions at all that anyone might want to ask?
I have a question, Nishka, if I may ask.
Yeah.
Yes.
Vineet, so I'm Reena and I'm from Office of Learning Support at Ashoka University. We support students with disabilities. My question is more about the work that you do, and over the last 2 years, as it's been clear, how our country is divided as a digitally divided country. right? So now your platform being a digital platform, how do you reach out to these remote areas, and how do you, I mean, how do those people know about your platform, right? So those are the people who may not be aware of computers also, right? Do you reach out? Do you have a team which goes into these remote areas to look for these people?
Yeah, this is again a very interesting question. A lot of startups would face a similar challenge. As such, one, if you see on our website, we have a very strong volunteer-led platform. We call them talent scouters. Any person can go on our website and sign to become a talent scouter. So when we launched initially, lot of talent scouters signed up, and their core work was to find people with disabilities. Lot of them don't know how to again sign up on the platform. They did not have computers, so all of these talent scouters helped us to get these profiles of people with disabilities. So that is one way which we have done it. The second way is lot of NGOs are there in the rural and the urban hinterland who might be very good in training people with disabilities, but they don't know how to bag economic opportunities for them. So we connected with almost all NGOs who were into the skilling of people with disabilities. So right now we have launched a program called Atypical Accelerator program, where now more than 80 plus NGOs are part of this. And that is how we get bulk of our requirement for people with disabilities. So that is the second way. And the third is making our website completely accessible. Fourth, again, the concept had a lot of strength, and it spread out automatically in the community. And probably my 5 years of working in Big Bazaar and mainstreaming inclusion across the country with shoppers with disability also helped to build that initial trust on the platform.
Okay. Okay. Last question from my side, Nishka. So I'm just curious, Vineet, how is this artwork available to common people? Like people like us, how do we, if we want to buy an art piece, like it's been shown in your video, how do we reach out?
Our website, in fact we have 1,000 artworks which are listed. You can look at how it will look on your own wall live. There is a 3D AR feature. So you can go and browse all the artworks, and all our artworks have a story. So you can actually look at the artist who has created his story. Where is he from? His other works. You can filter through city, gender, disability. You can, so yeah, all of this is live on the platform. I'm like, most of the people get amazed when something like, probably explore the website. You'll
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you so much, Vineet. Thank you.
All right. I think in the interest of time, we can end questions at this point. But thank you so much, Vineet, for taking the time to be here, for sharing your thoughts, answering all of our questions. Before we end, do you have anything you'd like to share with us? Like,
No, I think keep on having more conversations related to diversity, inclusion. I think that also probably sends a message and provokes our mind to do much more. And I also loved coming here. So thank you for inviting. But I think the core message which I want all of you to leave is, please try to solve social problems. It's completely possible in this current age. Actually, that was the motto when I started conversation. I said that if I can help in any ways to tell you that this is completely possible. Atypical is just one of the examples, but I'm very sure all of you have so many social problems. I recently heard about someone trying to who raised funds because they were trying to say that get ambulances within 15 minutes like groceries. It's an irony that grocery would reach faster than an ambulance in our country, but that startup was trying to solve that problem. Similarly, we are trying to solve problems for livelihood. So just wanted to leave that there, like, it would be challenging, but we can solve social problems with sustainability in mind, and it's possible. Obviously you'll not become a billionaire because you're working for the cause, but I can tell you that that would be very meaningful because you're touching lives with dignity.
That's very true. Yes, thank you so much for everyone who's attended this session and who's also participated with your questions, your thoughts. I know I truly enjoyed. But yeah, we look forward to your engagement in further initiatives by CSIP, OLS, and even Atypical Advantage. But thank you so much for attending. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for organizing it.